For as long as we've known about it, Huntington's disease has been this relentless, unstoppable force. But what if that could finally change? A brand new clinical trial is offering the first real glimmer of hope, a gene therapy that might actually be able to slow the inevitable. So let's dive into what could be a massive breakthrough.
First things first, to really get why this news is such a big deal, you have to understand the challenge we're up against. So let's quickly cover the basics of this devastating disease.
So, what are we actually talking about when we say Huntington's? Well, it's an inherited genetic disorder, which means it's passed down through families. And it progressively attacks the brain, leading to this tragic loss of both physical and mental control. The hardest part? It just relentlessly gets worse over time. And this is the stark reality that families have been facing for generations. Right now, there is no cure. The treatments that exist can only help manage the symptoms. They can't do anything to change the course of the disease. And that is what makes this potential new therapy so incredibly important. But now, a new chapter of hope might be starting. A potential solution has popped up in a recent clinical trial, and it's called AMT-130. So AMT-130 was developed by a company called uniQure, and it's at the center of what's called a phase 1 and 2 trial. Now, that's still pretty early in the process, but this trial is designed to test two major things. Is this radical new approach safe, and does it actually work? And let's be clear, this is not just about taking a pill. The therapy is a one-time treatment, which sounds great, but it's also incredibly complex. It requires a very long neurosurgical procedure to inject the gene therapy directly into a super specific part of the brain. Okay, so the big question is, does this incredibly complex and risky procedure actually do anything? Well, the early data is getting a lot of people very, very excited. Let's take a look at the results that have the entire scientific community buzzing. 75%. Just let that number sink in for a second. In the patients who got the high dose of AMT-130, the therapy appeared to slow down the progression of the disease by a staggering 75% over 3 years. That's compared to a control group, and it is a huge number. Let's really break that down. You had the control group, and they, sadly, followed the expected path of the disease. But the high-dose group, they showed something pretty remarkable. Not only was their disease progression slowed by that 75% figure, but key biological markers of nerve damage in their spinal fluid, they actually went down. Think of these markers as little warning lights for brain cell distress. And for the very first time, it looks like a treatment might be turning those warning lights off. And the good news just kept coming. Overall, the therapy was found to be safe and well tolerated. The group that got the treatment had way better scores on their clinical evaluations, and those all-important spinal fluid tests, they confirmed a drop in a specific protein that we know is a sign of nerve damage in Huntington's. Okay, now as incredible as all this sounds, we gotta pump the brakes just a little bit and have a quick reality check. The data is still very early, and there are some really important limitations we need to think about before anyone starts calling this a cure. You know, context here is everything. This was a really small study. We're talking only 29 people in total. The results haven't even been published or peer-reviewed yet, which is a crucial step in science. We also have no idea what happens after that 3-year mark. And, critically, there was no placebo group. The comparison was made to historical data, which just isn't as scientifically solid. And then you have the purely practical hurdles. As Professor Ann Rauser points out here, the surgery itself is just a massive undertaking. We're talking 12 to 18 hours. Can you imagine trying to make a procedure that complex, widely available? That's a huge challenge for any healthcare system anywhere. So, given the incredible promise, but also these very real challenges, where do we go from here? Let's look at the road ahead, from this exciting trial to what could one day be a treatment your doctor can prescribe. Okay, so here's the roadmap they're hoping to follow. The company, uniQure, wants to apply for what's called accelerated approval in the US sometime early next year. After that, they'll apply in the UK and Europe. But, and this is a big but, the final say belongs to the regulatory agencies, and they could very well say we need more data from bigger trials before we can approve this. Despite all those hurdles, you just can't overstate the potential impact here. It's really profound. As Dr. Konkow says, this could fundamentally change how we even think about Huntington's, from this untreatable disease to one where slowing it down or maybe even stopping it is a realistic goal. And all of this leaves us with a final, really powerful question. Yeah, this therapy is specifically for Huntington's, but its success could be a huge proof of concept for so much more. Could this be the breakthrough that not only changes the future for families with Huntington's, but also unlocks brand new doors for treating a whole range of other genetic brain disorders? That's the hope.